I thought it was the dumbest thing that we ever did.
Are you serious?
Yes,
no, it
and
turned
I'm a
out
bigger
really
Power.
good.
I'm a bigger Ninja Turtle fan than I am Power Ranger fan. And I was like, damn, I love the Ninja Turtles. Why the hell are we doing something with the Ninja
No,
Turtles?
but okay, after watching it, after actually seeing it all together.
Why the hell is there a girl turtle?
I know. I'm not against like.
Where was Splinter?
Well done, everybody. My name is Christopher Kevin Lee. I was with Ranger Creators, one of the best season ever, Power Rangers in space. I did not want to be a Power Ranger. Not even a little bit. I grew up and, that's how much I know about Power Rangers. I didn't even know I had. Oh, no.
Hey guys, before you watch my Power Morphicon Express coverage, please take the time to visit Christopher Kama Lee's mom's GoFundMe page. I mean, his mom is currently fighting stage 2 lung cancer. And remember guys, Jason David Frank lost his own mom to cancer. So guys, please share and donate whatever you can, guys. Help me raise more awareness of this, guys, and hope that one day we can successfully find a way to cure cancer ASAP, guys, because no one deserves that, guys. Please, guys. Thank you, and may the power protect you all.
Holy cow! Welcome.
What do you all think of the experience of getting to meet different people associated with your favorite characters?
Best con ever.
Yeah, that's good.
I had no chance in the morphing contest. I had no chance whatsoever. I lost that one.
Look, we can't all be perfect morphers. That's why I didn't enter. I would have lost.
Especially to that top.
Oh, I know, right? It's not even fair. So I guess what we're going to talk about today is something. Are you going to run it from over there? Are you running it from over here? So I guess plus some, annual stories and some one-shots, and as a part of that, I wrote and ran all of Shattered Grid last year, and then I wrote and directed the live-action Shattered Grid, I guess short film I'd call it, with JDF, and so that's my. Now I'm done, but that's my association with Power Rangers to this point.
Okay. All right. Well, I think you guys, you all probably know I'm the voice of Goldar, Kerrigan Mayhem. Woo! Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I wrote and directed the parody Shattered Grill.
It got more views, actually.
It's hard to believe that I was recording Goldar 26 years ago. It's amazing that it's been that long. And we none of us believed any of this was a part of it. We didn't know this was going to get this big, and certainly didn't know that it was going to last 26 or 7 years, 93, so whatever that is. And I'm still doing voiceover. Not a lot. I go down to LA and do jobs on occasion. I try to avoid going to Los Angeles at all costs, but I will go down to do Family Guy. I've done about, a dozen or so of those in the last few years. But my casting director wound up, it was a quick fire scenario after 12 years with them. And so I'm kind of, I haven't ingratiated myself yet. And after having a nice conversation with Kyle yesterday, I realize I have to start jumping into the reality that just because I have all this history doesn't mean anybody knows or cares. So, this business never lets go.
Like
it's true. It never, ever, ever. You're right down to the bitter end, you're having to prove yourself in one way or another. So it's probably time I call her over at Family Guy, or the new casting people, because that's a good job. And I'm happy to drive to LA for a Family Guy all day long, or for any other job, actually. And I'm doing a lot of writing and directing myself. I moved out of LA 17 years ago and moved up to the Central Coast of California. And that's where I live with my wife and my 3 dogs. And I love doing Comic-Cons. I have a ball. It's always rewarding, and it's always fascinating to me how you guys are such fans, and it's every time as surreal as it was from when I did my very first one. So it's as surreal for us as it is sometimes for you guys meeting us. We're fascinated that this is really going on, and that I think the biggest thing is not ever realizing how many of you we affected as we were doing this when you were all, little kids. And I'm afraid I did cause, I've been told, nightmares in some cases, and I apologize for that. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, I'm sure hopefully nobody's lives have been completely destroyed over what I did or didn't do. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And go ahead.
That's a very impressive one. I'm Lauren Stone. I'm the Media Programming Director and Assistant Floor Manager for Power Morphicon. So thank you guys all for coming to the show. It's been a fantastic experience to take it on the road for Express. I'm going to open a question to both you gentlemen. Let's start with Kyle. So both of you, in completely different ways, took a pre-established universe between you dubbing over a character in a suit for Goldar, and for Kyle taking a portion of a series that was 25 years long over, and both of you kind of managed to create new worlds based on this pre-existing material. So Kyle, as a comic book writer, what was that like to expand and create a new universe based on, like I said, Mighty Morphin was long gone. How did that work out for you, and what were the challenges? What did you do to create that?
Well, I was a fan when I was a kid, when I was about 8 years old. It premiered, and there was nothing like it at that time, particularly with regards to like superhero storytelling, which a lot of us were very hungry for. And I think about how much content is out there right now. And if even half of that amount existed when I was a kid, how much less I probably would have been bullied, just because of the things that I was interested in and I liked, and my love of kind of superheroes and comics sparked my love of film, and then vice versa. And so when the book opportunity came up, essentially what had happened was that Boom acquired the license to Power Rangers. And I had chatted with some people at Boom over the years about how cool it would be to do like a contemporary Power Rangers series that played to the strengths of the comic book medium, and in the way that you were able to do things that the show never would have been able to pull off, and work to the strengths of the medium and without the limitations of pre-existing footage and budget constraints and things like that. And when Boom got the license, they released these covers that Goni Montes had done. It's the covers for issue 0 of all of the super just sleek Rangers holding their helmets, and they all kind of look like brand new Ferraris, And I looked at that and I said, yes. I said, they absolutely get it. And I knew that for Boom, I'd never done books with them. I primarily worked for Marvel and DC, but I knew this would be a big project for them, and they'd get behind it. And so I reached out and said, who do I got to kill to write a pitch for a backup or something? And they said, well, actually, we remember talking to you over the years about this, and so your name keeps coming up. And I was coming off of some big books at DC, some Batman books, and they said, do you want to put together a pitch for a series and as the main writer? And I said, I had about a week of downtime in between some projects before I was going to go direct this little short film. And I said, I can do that. And so I started looking at Power Rangers again. It was really interesting because I hadn't looked at it in about 20 years, and I
nostalgia goggles. Yeah.
Well, it's not even so much. Yeah, I guess you could describe it that way. For me, the way I described the approach on the book was that I wasn't trying to write Power Rangers as they existed, and not even as I remember them existing, but as I remember them making me feel. So as a kid, the sense of scope and huge mythology and this just very kind of like these tragic arcs and Tommy's loss of power, his corruption, seduction by Rita, and then corruption and brainwashing, and then subsequent kind of redemption, but only to lose the powers and then to get new. Like, it all felt just very, very, like, just great mythology. And when you go back and you look at the show through like the lenses of, you know, kind of cynical adult, a lot of that stuff isn't really there. I mean, it's hinted at, but you see the show, you start to see kind of the, I don't want to say warts and all of things, right? But you see it kind of for what it is, and how hard it probably was to put together back in the day. And so I wanted to kind of strip that away and really utilize and kind of remix the property to the strengths of the monthly comic book medium. And we can do anything. We can go anywhere, and we can set scenes anywhere, and bring in kind of whoever we want, depending on license or approval, right? And so that really became the kind of mantra for me, and then we just built it out. We built it out from there.
That's fantastic. And so for Kerrigan, you had a different sort of challenge because you are a voice actor and you walk into I don't know if it was an audition or you went straight to the studio, but they give you this show full of chopped up footage. They're like, here's a dog monster, monkey face, gold dude. Give him a personality. All right.
Yeah, okay. This one was different, respectful of auditioning. We all audition from the beginning to the bitter end, as I was kind of earlier stating. I'm still appalled at the people that you would never believe are in fact auditioning to do a voiceover for a commercial or a promo or a trailer, or for that matter, an animated character in a cartoon, be it anime or original animation. But we were kind of an voiceover acting troupe. I say we. There were probably, I would say, a core group of probably 50 of us, and then a loose group of maybe 100, maybe a little more, but that was pretty much it. And in that loose fitting group was, you know, a lot of on-camera actors that were struggling to be on-camera actors. And this was, this would be your bartending or waiting tables job, going in and doing a lot of these different jobs that we did, including a lot of the actual voiceover auditioning. For me, it actually took over my on-camera career because well prior to the role of Goldar, I was already an established voiceover guy. And I got my start in a show called Robotech, which, you know, I think it probably dates me, respectful of how old I might be. And that's where I, as they say, cut my teeth in that show. And as Kyle was saying, the amount of content that was on TV in the day, at that time, you know, I mean, I grew up with 3 channels, basically a couple local stations and ABC, NBC, and CBS. I mean, you could name what was on TV every single night between the hours of 7 and 11. That was the programming. Compared to today, there's no, I mean, it's not even, it's incomprehensible to me how much content there is on television, on streaming, on cable. It's really, it's mesmerizing. I don't quite understand how there can be this much. But respectful of Goldar and the Power Rangers franchise, if you will, you might those of you, I don't know if any of you are old enough to have watched Robotech, but Tony Oliver was the lead, and he played a character called Rick Hunter. And Tony actually wound up becoming one of the producers of the Power Rangers. We call it changing hats. He went to the dark side. He became a producer. And, but God knows he was one of us in heart and principle and everything else. So when it came time to cast the Power Rangers, all of the villains were cast without any auditioning at all. Tony handpicked each and every one of us. Michael Sorich was handpicked to play Squat, Dave Mallow played Finster, Robert Axelrod Babu, and I was a throwaway. What I mean by that is Tony and everybody was convinced that the Goldar wasn't much of a part at all, and he said, just throw some one of your nasty voices at him, and that'll be that. And this was before the show had actually sold, meaning this was like a promo or a teaser. So I had, I think, 1 or 2 lines in this, if that, 1 or 2. And 6 weeks later, he called us all and said, "Hey, that Power Rangers thing is sold." And we were all a little surprised, because what we saw in the footage, we were a little like, I don't think anybody's going to bite on this. And we'd already done quite a bit of work for Saban over the last couple of years. A lot of different anime shows. And we were doing anime in the 80s. Nobody cared about it. I mean, right now there's a studio that I did a lot of work for called Harmony Gold. And I know they have in their library right now probably 100 fully produced anime series or shows that we dubbed, and it was just as good, maybe in some cases better than some of the stuff that's out there today. I'd like to believe that maybe somebody's gonna Ahmed Agrama, who I think I might be getting in touch with next week, just to find out what's happening with all that stuff, and maybe we'll find like buried treasure. We'll find some great anime shows that have been sitting in a library for 30 years. So on that note, we all got recording, and we got this new job for this show, and people ask me, well, why did the voice change in the first season with Goldar? And what happened was, I wasn't really committed to doing much with it, because I was told, and it was established, that this wasn't much of a part. Well, I wasn't really dedicating much vocally to it, because I had 1 or 2 lines every episode, and I was in and out, and that was the end of it. So, I was kind of throwing it away, which, there's no excuse for, but it just wasn't much to it. And then Tony called me after about 12 episodes, I think, and he said, "Hey, we screwed up. That character, Goldar, is huge." I said, Wait, what do you mean? There's going to be a lot of stuff coming. I said, because it's all coming from Japan. So they hadn't really done their homework to the degree that now they were, and they saw the footage, and they were like, whoa. And I said, well, yeah, I got to figure out that voice, because what I'm doing isn't really going to work very well. I'm wearing my voice out. I could feel, it was very pinched. I just, like I said, I wasn't really giving it my 100%. So I was kind of a closet drummer, and we had a little basement in my house where I drummed. And I went down into the basement, and I studied my voice for about an hour, and I found it. I was very excited. When I got there, I started, working it and figuring out how I wanted to place it, and when I hit it, and I was on headphones and everything, because it's like no different than a rock and roll singer. You want to really hear what it sounds like in your headphones, and I got it, and I called Tony. I said, hey, I think I got this voice down. I think it's really cool. It's much bigger. It's much scarier. And they heard it and they said, wow, that's bitchin'. Okay, cool. I said, cool. So we're all happy. And I was real happy because I knew I could record. I didn't know how long I could get away with doing it, but the time really came in at about 45 minutes. That's where I could leave the recording studio and still go on to do other jobs, because there were sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 jobs a day, and Goldar was one stop in a day, or one stop in maybe 3 stops in a week, so to speak. And we would record anywhere from 1 to 3 episodes a session. Regardless, my rule became about 45 minutes. Some days I could record an hour. If I felt fine, it's like, okay, we're in good shape. I can go another 10. Or maybe another day, it's like, I've got 30 minutes, because it was tired from maybe a job I did the day before or whatever. So, I mean, again, it is it is on the one hand, very comfortable for me to do the voice, but there is a limit at where it's like, okay, that's enough of that. So that's how that kind of rolled out, if you will.
So we've discussed how got their start building on the world and the character they were given. Now I want to talk about Kyle. So you've written the comics, they're out there, response is good. So now, at different Comic Cons and Morphicon, we're starting to see Shattered Grid live reads. What was it like for you when you saw the world that you had written and built being performed by the people who, created these characters for their mediums?
Well, I mean, I'm the one that put it together.
Oh, okay.
So it was something that I had these 2 friends in Australia, Matt Groom and Michael Basudel, who I did a podcast with the whole time I was writing the Power Rangers comics. It was almost like a director's commentary every issue, where we broke down kind of what happened in the issue, but more importantly, some of the behind-the-scenes stories and maybe certain things that had been in the script that I changed and didn't end up in the final book, or conversations with the artist, or how things came about. And as part of that, I thought, I knew I was leaving the book at the end of Shattered Grid, and the event had been very, very successful, and it seemed to really resonate for a lot of people. Have you guys read the comics? How many people have read the comics here? How many of you have read Shattered Grid, or know what Shattered Grid is? Those of you who don't know what Shattered Grid is, do you want me to tell you what Shattered Grid is?
Yeah.
Shattered Grid was the 25th anniversary event in the comic book line that I built. And it features an older, evil, alternate timeline version of Tommy Oliver, who, when Rita's spell was broken, chose to stay evil. So he worked with Rita and conquered the world, killed all the Power Rangers, or those that he could find, took their coins and started creating armies of stormtroopers, and then he killed Rita because at a certain point every child has to grow up. And he embarked on what he called the Great Campaign, which was to take his armies across the multiverse, and in the first issue, he kills our Tommy Oliver, and it charges a Chaos Crystal so he can move his armies across time and space. Every era of Power Rangers now exists all at once because the grid is broken. In order to protect itself, it fractures our world to prevent causality and paradoxes. And essentially, Lord Draken is trying to amass morphers from each team of Rangers because he wants to become God. He wants to become one with the grid. So it was my way to celebrate 25 years of Power Rangers by building out arguably the biggest event that Power Rangers has ever had. And the short film I did with Jason was basically a precursor to that. And so after the success of that and the response to that and the book, I felt like Matt, Michael, and I were all talking about how, I think it was actually their idea, like based on who was going to be at Power Morphicon, it could be really interesting to try to actually build out a live table read experience. And so we went in and adjusted the scripts based on who we had and set it all to artwork. And then I reached out to everyone, every actor I knew personally, to see who I could get on board for this. So we had Walter Jones doing Zach Taylor again. We had Aaron Cahill doing Jen Scott's. Jason had to back out at the last second just because his line was crazy at the convention. And so Jason Font then stepped in and did Lord Draken and Tommy Oliver. Megan Camarina did Kimberly. Barbara Goodson did Rita again. Michael Sorich came in and did, actually he did Babu Squad and Goldar, the one Goldar line.
I don't want to hear it.
And then we had a few others as well join. And actually, David Fielding did Zordon again, and I brought in audio hardware so we could do the Zordon voice live as a surprise for everyone. And so as I was going to set up the audio hardware in front of, it was 1,000 people, packed room, and the panel, the Forever Red panel before us was ending, and they were all coming down the stairs, and I only had 30 seconds in between the panel to get everything set up. And so I just went to get on stage, and the stairs, people were coming down it, so I'm 6'3", so I went to just hop up, and I hopped up, and my knee popped, and I fell in front of 1,000 people. I tore my ACL and my meniscus. And Dan Southworth and who played Lightspeed Red?
Sean C. W. Johnson.
Sean Johnson caught me, and I blacked out. And then the moderator came over and was trying to, I know this is what you were asking, but
It's okay. No, this is a good story.
the
Sorry
moderator,
it happened, but this is good.
the moderator came over and was asking, he was like, I didn't know who it was, but he was just like, I know you don't want to, just bend your leg, bro, just bend your leg. And Sean and Dan both looked at each other, and Sean goes, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think you should really be like messing with his leg. And I remember looking up at him in this like delusional kind of blackoutness of pain, and I thought to myself, no, you're not a doctor, you're an EMT. And then I told them, I kind of came to my senses, and I said, you know what, this happened a few weeks ago. I'd hyperextended it playing basketball. And I said, I can walk. I said, just get me up, and I'll be able to walk. We'll have like 20 minutes before it like stiffens up on me. And they're like, okay. And so we got up, and then we did the panel. And it was really, it was like an out-of-body experience because I was in so much pain. Ron Wasserman had done new music for the panel as well as the intro for everything. And even with having blown out my knee, I just had the surgery in November, so I'm still recovering from it. It's about a year recovery. It was one of the greatest nights of my life. Because to watch these incredibly talented performers breathe life into these characters again, in some cases for the first time in 25 years, when Walter Jones turns to Aaron and says, there are more Power Rangers after us, and Aaron says, oh yeah, you guys are the greats. It's like you get goosebumps, right? Because it traverses time and space and generations, you know? And I'm getting them right now as I say it. It was just a really, really special night, and especially because it was all words that I had written for the comic. And so when I write, I can hear certain characters' voices in my head, right? And so to hear them actually perform really dramatic material with a lot of meat to it was really, really special. And I just kept making eye contact, or trying to make eye contact with my editor, Daphne, who was in the audience. Because all I could think of is it works. The scenes work. Like, we did it for the book, but they work, you know? So it was really cool, yeah. It was also a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It won't happen again.
And this was last Power Morphicon, right?
This was in August.
Do you guys want to hear really, if you weren't, for those of you who weren't there and you weren't behind the scenes, the most depressing thing about that is the videographer that I hired for that panel, his batteries died.
Well, I have it.
So do I.
There is a video that Shout Factory did, and
Yes, that was a really good one.
and Michael and I downloaded it, and Michael cut in all the artwork.
Oh, no.
So it's a private, it's just a video that we have right now. But there is a video that exists where you're hearing everyone perform, and when we go into the scenes, it's set to the actual artwork, just like it was at the convention.
That's amazing.
I don't know if it'll ever come out. I don't know if it ever could, but it does exist.
There's clips of it on the internet at least. I've seen parts of the show.
Not like this.
I don't. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have time for I'm going to pose a similar question to you, Farragon. Thank you, Kyle. That was an amazing answer. So we discussed how you got your role as Goldar, how you breathed life into the character. Now let's kind of turn it to the second portion of it, which is let's go more into fan response. The character was on the show for a while. They made new footage for the Lord Zed arc, and he was in there up through Zio, if I'm not mistaken. The character was there for longer than he was in Japan. We loved Goldar. How was the fan response and into building more footage and world with Goldar?
It probably is better answered. I'll certainly share what I can, respectful of that, as the actor. And that's what I am. I'm the actor. And more times than not, most of the time, let's say for the most part, all of the time, the actor is basically in the dark. I am there to deliver a performance on the spot. Unlike on camera, very different. On camera, you get your sides, they call them sides, your lines, or your portion of the script. You used to get them a little prior to what you do now. Now you're lucky to get your sides the night before the shoot. But the point of the matter is you do have some time to prepare or rehearse. Not the case with voiceover, and it never has been the case with voiceover. And I don't care if it's a trailer, a promo, an animated, any area of voiceover, you walk in ice cold. Aside from possibly having auditioned for a piece, you've read a piece of whatever this was at your agent's or at your house in your home studio, and you either got the part or you didn't, whatever that may be. And now you're walking in ice cold to a director you've maybe more times than not never worked with. Producers, how many? Maybe 8. Sometimes it starts with 1, and I've seen them clone up to 20. I've done takes in commercials where the first take feels real good, but we do 17 more takes or 22 more takes. And they keep telling you, do this, do that, do the other. Your script turns into a crisscross mess that nobody would be able to understand or read except the actor. That's, hit this word, do that word, come up on that. Could you say that different? Could you say, drop that? And it goes on and on and on. The punchline to that is take 22 is identical to take 1. And that's the one they go, we got it. That's the one, buddy. We got it. And you don't ever say, it's interesting, you might want to just butt that up to take 1. But we got it? Beautiful, and you keep that stuff to you learn real quick, I think I actually did that in take 1. And it's like, no.
So does all of Goldar run together for you then?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So that being said, I go in and record, and I do basically what I'm told. If I have a question, I'm allowed to ask a question. That's fair for the actor to say, I don't get this, what is this? Well, with this we had a little more flexibility because it was ongoing, and I was working with Scott Page-Pagter, who was a friend, and we were an ensemble who had all worked together for years. We did single track. What that means is nobody else is in the studio but me. We're not in group. It's not like original animation where everybody's recording at the same time. It's just me sitting on a chair like this, or a stool, microphone, music stand, and my script in front of me. If Barbara has recorded, or Squat or Michael's recorded, or I have a line that follows one of theirs, they've either recorded prior to me or they haven't. But doesn't really change my performance one way or the other. But working with Scott, we had a lot more fun than you would have with a strange in a strange situation where you're just coming in as a one-off, if you will. So Scott and I had a lot of fun with Goldar. We did a lot of rewriting. The rewriting was both for content and humor and for sync. So the combination was always a part of this particular job. It was always a part of this recording. And as a writer myself, and given a lot of license. So a lot of the stuff in there is mine. A lot of Goldar's lines were mine. And a lot of other parts that I had that were ongoing, there were lines that I wrote. They were better, they were funnier, and in many cases, no. The stuff that was written worked. Magna Defender is a prime example. I didn't write a word of Magna Defender. It was beautifully written, and the arc was magnificent, and I was only so honored and thrilled to be able to voice this fabulous anti-hero. That being said, my input, respectful of the specific question, is minimal most of the time. In this case, I got to do a little more than an actor usually would. I think there was some question. As far as the popularity of the character, I was thrilled. You want to take credit. You want to believe, it's because it's me. Well, that's real nice, but I don't know. The character, I think, kind of was a built-in popular character. I'd like to believe, again, that I brought something to this character that somehow, helped its popularity. I know my action figure was sold out. Always at Christmas, you couldn't get a Goldar action figure. And ironically enough, you can't get my pop figure right now. It's sold out all over the country. So I don't know, that's really, really tremendous. And so fun that I have a pop figure after 26 years. I think then, to wrap this part of the question, is I think we were all a little bit confused when Goldar started getting a little goofy, and things started getting a little more comical, goofy comedy down the line there. And I just remember saying to Scott, what's exactly happening here? What happened to the badass? And so we they kind of said, well, he's going to be a badass and he's going to be goofy and not sure what was going on with that. But, again, I'm not marching up to the offices and saying, hey, I don't like what's going on. What are we doing? Or what's the direction here? And Scott wasn't real clear on it either. So we just rolled with it, and it didn't seem to affect the popularity. Here.
In a contrast to scary, intense, into competence, right? Like, the funniest villains are the ones that are also the scariest. For me, anyway. The Joker is funny because there's a tension that is inherent to him, okay? Because you watch him do these terrible things. For someone like Goldar, as the show progressed, I wasn't watching anymore, but when I would see episodes as a kid, he did become a little bit more in the slapstick vein, and a lot of the menace was kind of taken out. And I think the slapstick can be incredibly effective, but it has to be juxtaposed against the menace. You kind of still need both parts.
And I think that's where it did start to get into a little trouble. The balance was off a little bit, and I can't tell you how long that lasted, or if it did in fact last. It might have just been a little chunk in there that it got off track. I'm not sure to this moment.
Morphing Grid trailer, and what that came along with Battle for the Morphing Grid, the video game is coming out as screen. Now, will Goldar be making a voice appearance, or Magna in there, so
Are they in the game?
I believe so.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
I got out, man. I did. I did my time. I did the books, and it's cool to see because I did see Drakens in the game, and characters like that. So I'm just excited to see like anytime you create something and it goes on in any sort of other medium. You know, it's neat to see that kind of resonance. Like Jason, Mr. Jason David Frank, everybody. Jason and I talk about that all the time, like doing like the Draken short film and things like that. Like it's a character that kind of then starts to transcend like what you originally created, you know, and it ends up becoming yours. It becomes your guys's. It's an empty vessel that is filled with your associations, right? And at a certain point, I think Power Rangers, just as a brand in general, I don't mean to take this away from your original question, but I think that that's what's really beautiful about it. I mean, everyone that's been here this whole weekend, like at a certain point, like, and I had it as a kid as well, like you take kind of this sense of ownership in a property that transcends what its original intention was, what its original associations were. And so anytime, for me anyway, like to see those characters actually take on a life of their own, is just, you know, that alone makes me really happy.
Do we have another question? Take you guys, and then we're gonna wrap up.
So I kind of always had an overall idea of what Shattered was all about. But I guess a couple of months ago I found this photo, and I thought it was fan art, but it actually turns out to be one of the issues of Go-Go, where you have Jason as the Yellow Ranger and Zack as the Pink. And I thought it was a really, really cool concept, and so I ended up buying the first volume as well as that issue. So these ideas of gender being played with, is that something you were excited about and something that you feel personal about?
Yeah, well, a couple points. That issue is actually Ryan Parrott wrote Go-Go, the Go-Go series, and so that's actually the story arc that takes place after the Shattered Grid event. So I had left by that point. But the thing that Ryan and I have talked a lot about, and I do feel strongly about, is that one of the amazing things about Power Rangers that people don't really talk about all that often is that Power Rangers is about the strength and power of friendship and teamwork, right? It's incredibly inclusive, and it has been for 25 years. So for me, and for Ryan, especially when he built out that idea and he pitched it to me, and the idea that going to this planet would end up warping their powers, and that's why the color swap happens, but then memories are also associated with there, and so you have all sorts of interesting identity kind of questions at play there. And so Trini becomes the Red Ranger, right? And then the natural question is like, well, the association of Power Rangers is that the Red Ranger is the leader, right? And even that in and of itself is very reductive and a stereotype. And so Ryan really wanted to push against that and explore, well, is she the leader because she's the Red Ranger, or is she a leader who just happens to become the Red Ranger, right? So playing with any sort of preconceived notions, whether it's gender, whether it's identity, whether it's even color, is something that I think we're in kind of a postmodern society now, particularly with this brand. And I'm done. But when I was on it, it was something that was always kind of in the back of my mind.
Our last question.
Ryan, do you plan on doing more Power Rangers books with Boom, or maybe if they ask you to come back, do you consider it?
I won't. No. I'll put it this way. All good things come to an end eventually, right? And I feel very proud of my work on the book and on the brand. And I worked at DC for many years, and I did a lot of books there that were really hard, and books that, you know, I can look back on now, and there are aspects of that I'm proud of, but by and large, there was a lot of the work that I did there where I kind of look at it, it's very much a what could have been, you know, for me personally. And I don't look at Power Rangers that way. And I feel like culminating with Shattered Grid, I really got to tell the story that I was really passionate about. And so I don't want to go, like, I told my story and now it's time, just like actors turn over the roles to new characters and new Rangers. I don't want to outstay my welcome. And I mean, well, except, yeah, but you're timeless, man.
I did that on Turbo. It was time. I left when the show was on top for reasons. I didn't expect to go back, and then Dino Thunder, and then I would consider going back if we had a Draken series, because that to me makes it a whole.
Well, I would do that.
Yeah, it would make the whole thing just revive.
And the other thing too is I would say that I won't go back to the books. If there was an opportunity to do something in another medium, whether it was live action, whether it was a game, whether it was puzzles, like something that wasn't the comics.
Like write a good movie, like he should be writing the second movie. I'm just saying.
I mean, it'd have to be the right opportunity, but maybe.
It makes sense. Kyle knows though. For me, like if I was saying, if I own Hasbro, I would turn it over to someone who has made the best universe possible. Instead of looking for a name to write something, sometimes people with a name, to me, doesn't mean that it's going to be the best. You know, like if you look at Power Morphicon with Scott, what he built for 8 years ago, or not how many years ago?
Since 2008.
Okay, so I did his first show, and the name Power Morphicon has a brand, but it's not just the name, it's the passion inside of the brand. We're bringing people in that know what they're doing. So sometimes people look for a movie name, like he's going to write it because he's got a big name, because he's the maker of, look, Lionsgate. They don't work there no more. The director's fired. Everyone's fired from Lionsgate. But the biggest thing was Twilight, Maze Runner, that's done now. So if they had someone to write a film that want a really good film that can connect passion to the fans, it would make sense. But sometimes studios don't do that.
No, let's make that happen. I'll go back.
Yes!
Thank you guys. Yeah, Kyle and Karen, you guys
Thank
have
you
been
guys
awesome.
very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. All our programming at Power Morphicon. You guys have been awesome.
Hey guys, right now, thanks guys, we have a demonstration. My Rising Sun karate demo team is performing now. It's kind of late in the day. We're trying to get as big a crowd as we can. If you want to like watch for 10 minutes, they perform really hard. They practice really hard to perform something good for y'all. Y'all can just, if you want to, maybe go to those benches and watch, yeah? Nice.
We've opened the door to the karate. It's right there.
Straight to the karate. Let's do it, Will.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. And then I do it.